they don't need to film me telling me about myself. My name is Marlene from the United German Hungarian Club in Philadelphia and Vicinity. We were in Center City, Philadelphia for many years, and then we were out in the suburbs in Bucks County for many years. And about 5 years ago, we actually sold our building, so we no longer have our own clubhouse, but we borrow clubhouses of other German clubs in our area, and we're still very active in the Gaufest and the Landesverband der Donauschwaben, which is another umbrella organization across the United States. And we also have soccer teams that are still very active.
Marty, can you go a little louder? I know you can.
Yeah. Soccer teams. Can you hear me now? No. There we go. Is that better?
Better.
All right. Soccer teams that are still active also, but we just don't have our own clubhouse, so we don't have to wash the windows and clean toilets. Our club got a new constitution way back in 1964, and at that time they deemed the people at that time to establish a permanent children's dance group for dancing, culture, and social behaviors. And at that time my mother was cheerleader of that group at our club, and she would take my brother and I to the library while she did research on folk dance. She could find 3 books. Now you go online and you can find anything, everything plus, things you didn't know of, things that the world has changed in those 60 years, and we don't even look at folk dance today. We may look at it one way, but the world looks at it differently now than it was looked at by Americans in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. As I go through the PowerPoint, you'll see that terminology has changed and how our information finding has changed. I also have a degree in dance from Delaware University. I was a dance major in college. I had a dance studio for 20 years, and I've been heavily involved with our dance group at our club. So that's my background. Let's get started. So dance, folk dance, and more. Dance. Dance is the movement. Are you ready?
Yeah, we're good.
Dance is the movement of a body in a rhythmic way, usually to music and within a given space, for the purpose of expressing an idea or emotion, releasing energy, or simply taking delight in the movement itself. From the earliest moments of known human history, dance has accompanied ancient rituals, spiritual gatherings, and social events. As a conduit of trance, spiritual force, pleasure, expression, performance, and interaction, dance became infused into our nature from the earliest moments of our existence. And without a doubt, dancing remains today one of the most expressive forms of communication that we know. 9,000-year-old cave in India was found to have the oldest proof of existence of dancing, a 9,000-year-old cave. The period when dance became widespread can be traced back to the 3rd millennia BC, when Egyptians started including dance as an integral part of their religious ceremonies. On the other hand, a 1400 BC Egyptian painting has been found to show a group of scantily clad dressed girls dancing for a wealthy male crowd, supported by several musicians. So some things have never changed. Folk dance is generally a type of dance that is a vernacular, meaning it usually is recreational expression of a past or present group, a class, or culture. The term folk dance was accepted until the mid-20th century. Then this and other categories of dance were questioned, and their distinctions became subject to debate. So that's where, they say mid-20th century, but still late in the 20th century, if I looked up folk dance, even on the internet, I would be able to find information about folk dance as I perceived the definition as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult. But a few years ago, I went online and I wanted to find out what they had for folk dance, and the internet told me it was now traditional dance and ethnic dance. So let's look further into some of those definitions. A folk dance is a dance developed to reflect the life of the people of a certain country or region. Not all ethnic dances are folk dances. For example, ritual dances are usually called religious dances because of their purpose. The terms ethnic and traditional are used when it is required to emphasize the cultural roots of the dance. In this sense, nearly all folk dances are ethnic. Some dances, such as polka and waltz, cross ethnic boundaries and even cross the boundary between folk dance and ballroom dance. Now keep in mind that these definitions, as they're thrown out, as I find them online, are, as I mentioned, they're different. They're different than they used to be. When I was in college, they said there was ballet, there was ethnic dance, and there was folk dance. That's what we learned as dance major students. The ballet, there were 3 major ballet theories and instruction theories. There was Russian ballet, French ballet, and Italian ballet. That has also changed. George Balanchine of the New York City Ballet, who came from Russia, has changed that individually. The American, I still don't see it online in the definition. I don't see it, but my experience tells me we have our own American ballet, together with the Russian. I'm getting applause in the back. Together with the Russian, the French, and the Italian. But when I was a little girl, it was just, my dancing teacher said, you know, there's the French school, the Russian school, and the Italian school. I think we now have the American school, and some people in the room agree. So, next. Ethnic dance. So when I was in college, ethnic dance was the second thing on the list. This term refers to any dance form that originates from a specific ethnic culture and expresses the movement aesthetics of that culture. Ethnic dance includes a wide variety of styles, not limited to folk dances. It can encompass ritual dances, social dances, and theatrical performances that reflect the culture or heritage of a group. Examples include Indian classical dances like Bharatanatyam, African tribal dances, and various forms of traditional dances from indigenous cultures worldwide. Folk dance, a type of dance that reflects the traditions, customs, and social life of a particular community or region, are often participatory, meaning that they are performed by the community rather than professional dancers. They are typically passed down through generations and are characterized by their connection to the cultural identity of the people. Examples include the Irish jig, the Mexican jaraba tapatio, and the American square dance. Not to leave out the Bavarian and Tyrolean Schuhplatte, which is never mentioned. So the big thing that I was taught in college, the difference between ethnic dance and folk dance, the big difference was that for ethnic dances, you have to be trained. And for folk dances, you can demonstrate it once, twice, and everybody can jump in and do it. That was the big difference. But now they've taken these definitions and they've tweaked them to differentiate not only between the technical ability needed for an ethnic dance, but also for the feeling and the aesthetic of the type of dance that one is or the other is. Here, understand the difference. Folk dances are usually danced at social gatherings. They can be formed spontaneously or during yearly celebrations, a la Gaufest. Usually they are not required to have a particular dancing stage and are almost always so simple to dance that new dancers and amateurs are encouraged to start dancing with everyone else. Ethnic dances almost always are highly choreographed and need instruction to perform. For a deeper dive into that question, go ahead and Google folk and ethnic dance and see what you can find and figure out. This kind of entertainment, the dancing, the folk dancing, the social dancing, continued to be refined until medieval times, when with the start of the Renaissance, ballet became an integral part of the wealthy class. I don't know that it became an integral part of the wealthy class from a participatory vantage point, more from viewing and enjoying the presentation of it. The Renaissance and new forms of music at that time brought many other dance styles into fashion. There were court dances before this time already, from Spain, from Italy, from France. They were soon surpassed by something called Baroque dances, which I don't think if we saw one and the other together that we would know the difference. But they became widely popular in French and English courts. Here's a painting of how Renaissance dance would have looked between 14 and 1600. And you see it's a long amount of time, 200 years. Probably started before that and ended after that. But you see, take a note of those costumes, the tights on the men, the flat front of the bodices of the women's clothing. Here's a sample of the Baroque dance. The shoes have changed, the pants have changed, they're wearing knickers now, Hosen. Men are wearing sashes and coats. It wasn't like that 250 years before this. This went on till about 1750, and then everything started to change. As the political world changed, the dance world changed also. Court dances and country dances. During the Renaissance, there became a distinction between country dances and court dances. The word country dance was noted as far back as 1577 in an English play. It refers to dances belonging outside the court. And somebody asked me the other day, well, how did the dances get from the court to outside of the court? Well, the way everything else gets out, the help. The help sees what the court's doing. They go out back to their town and village. They say, hey, go get the fiddler. Go get the squeeze box player. Gonna sing them this song. I'll show you the dance. And that's how the stuff spreads. Same way it still spreads. Word of mouth. So during this same time, the larger towns were developing into cities, which was creating another outlet for development of social dancing. After the end of the French Revolution in the late 1700s into the 1800s, many new types of dances emerged due to less restrictive women's clothing and allowing for a tendency for jumping and skipping. Think of it, 17 to 1800s, they were going to allow women to jump and skip. Woohoo!
And this was considered looser clothing.
Yes, it was. Much looser. These dances became even more energetic by the mid-1800s with the beginning of the so-called international polka craze. Also, opening the door for the first appearance of the famous waltz. The polka craze. This energetic dance that was focused for young women that liked to jump, hop, and turn swept across the world mid-19th century. The origin of the polka dance has been subject of several historical studies, but everyone concurs that ever since this dance exited the territories of Eastern Europe in the first half of the 19th century, it immediately became a very popular genre in Central and Western Europe, and then after World War II, a popular music genre in the United States. And we all know that for sure, especially our parents' generation knows that. And the waltz. The original form of waltz was first used by 13th century peasants in Germany, who devised a rolling folk dance that was quite different from all court dances that were popular in that time. So let me make two notes here. The two slides before this tell us that the polka craze became in the late, let's go back and look again. Mid-1800s, all right, mid-1800s. And here they're telling us that the waltz was danced way back in the 13th century in Germany. Just wanted to point that out. So the waltz and then the polka following that are much older than 18th, 19th century. They go back further. The rolling folk dance, this, when I was doing research for this, the word, the term rolling folk dance was the first time that I had ever heard it. So let's specifically at rolling dance, and it cites the waltz, or the German Waltz, which means to roll or revolve. And ballroom dance in three-quarter time, performed in primarily the closed position. You think back to those photographs I had of the painting and the other shot of the Baroque dancing. They were not in a closed position. They were in an open position. So when you think back to a lot of the folk dances that we do, whether it's the schottische or other things that move around the circle, they're not closed position, they're an open position. In those days, you didn't get that close if you were a girl to a man, and the man didn't get that close to you till after the wedding. So this rolling dance, and it was specifically designed to move people around the room, to be seen by everyone, because dancing was for young people. Once you were married, you didn't really dance unless you were upper courts. The peasants kind of did, they were cooking in the kitchen while the young people danced. And my grandmother was born in 1899 in Eastern Europe. It was Austria-Hungary when she was born. She said every Sunday night they went to a dance, and the old people, which were her parents, they were like 25 years old. The women sat on the side, the men were at the bar, and the young people danced, and the women sat there with their hands folded and just looked, make sure nobody touched anybody inappropriately or looked at each other the wrong way. But it was all about finding, a la the play Oklahoma, when they chance off that basket and he gets the girl with the basket, right? It was all about finding a partner for life. And this was one way with this valsa rolling around the room that they could show off the women. So everything's connected, everything's related. So their folk dance, the waltz, was filled with rolls, glides, and turns and was received well. And by the 1500s, remember it said started in the 1300s, by the 1500s, it reached Volta. This is what the online said, whatever I was looking at. Where's Volta?
Russia, part of Russia.
I couldn't find it. It told me it was in Ghana. I was like, no, not Ghana.
Volta or Volga?
Yeah, there is, but I don't think that's the Volta they're talking about. And I couldn't find it. So anyway, look up Volta. By the end of the 16th century, people of Vienna embraced the waltz, morphed it into a dance called Weller, and in France used the name Nizarda. So it went all over Europe. The Landler. The Landler predecessor to the waltz. The Landler is a partner dance that features hopping and stamping and may be instrumental or have a vocal part. It can also feature yoga. Dance halls became popular in Europe in the 19th century. That's when those towns exist, specifically where the male dancers stomp, clap, strike the sole of their feet, thighs, knees. They also strike their chest, even at a much faster pace in that Russian folk dance than in the shubalo. I'm sure you're all familiar with circle dances. The Pontic Greek folk dances are traditionally performed in lines or circles with participants linking hands. The circle gets smaller and expands during the dance, or it can move clockwise or counterclockwise. The kolo. Kolo is a Serbian South Slavic circle dance, found under this name in a number of countries: Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina. It's inscribed on the UNESCO list of intangible cultural heritage for Serbia. Hungarian communities are also influenced by the tradition, where a similar dance is known as kalala. And keep in mind that that Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina were a part of Austria-Hungary for quite some time. So the German people living in those areas, and there were a lot prior to World War II, thousands, they all learned the kola, they all learned the chardash, and the Serbian people and the Hungarian people all learned the waltz and the polka. So even though you were your own ethnicity, they all danced back and forth. The horo. Horo is also known as horo or oro, is a type of circle dance traditionally performed in Southeast Europe circles, similar to the kolo, but performed in Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, North Macedonia, Greece, and Turkey. This is a culturally adopted dance by ethnic minorities, specifically such as the Ashkenazi Jews, the Sephardic Jews, and the Roma. Just to mention some identifiable, well-known folk dances that if you've been involved with folk dance, you've been to festivals, you've seen these one way or another somewhere along the way. From Mexico, you have the Mexican hat dance, and I hope everybody knows, the Mexican hat dance is El Jarabe Tapatio. It is not La Raspa. Da-da, da-da, da-da. That's not the Mexican hat dance. Go look it up. England, the Morris dance, you've seen the Morris dance, I think they have their arms down or they have swords. Which one is it? Arms down? They have poles, right. In Ukraine, they dance the hopak. It's a lively folk dance, but also borders on the ethnic type of dance because you can't just get up and do the hopak unless you're Ukrainian, you've been doing it since you're 3 years old. But you can't just join up with a group. They have the men come out, then they have the women come out, then they have the men, right? Am I right? Men come, then the women come, and they're all doing their high kicks, and they also do slapping. Hungary, the Czardas, and Italy, the Tarantella. Poland, Krakowiak. Again, the Irish step dance, the Highland fling. Now the hula, with our new definitions in the 21st century, I say the hula is a tribal dance, not really folk dance. And it's choreographed. It's choreographed. It's not just you get up and wiggle around. The Chinese dragon dance, a presentation, not really a folk dance. They all get under the thing and they move all around, right? Our square dance here in the United States, and if you look up the maypole dance, it comes from Germany, but it's done everywhere in the world. Look up Mayday. It is done literally everywhere. Couple more photographs of some traditional ethnic celebrations, more like a tribal dance but choreographed, from India. Irish step dancing, also highly choreographed. That's it. That's it. So my question has always been, for me in my head, from the time I was in college, and they lined up the folk dancing and the types of things, and social dancing comes into play. You know, the waltz and the polka, they are deeply embedded in our culture, the culture of our folk dance. But they also, I just lost my train of thought. They're deeply embedded, but they're also social dances, right? And social dancing, that's a whole other subject. What happened to social dancing? It's a whole other thing. So that's really what I have. Any comments? Any questions? Any stories? Any, Lars, you want us to tell us about Indian dancing?
Yeah.
Lars has done Indian dancing.
Yeah, I've done the Bharatanatyam dancing. So that actually has an interesting history. Again, it was people who were sponsored, these women dancers, trained by these wealthy patrons, and sometimes, especially later in the night, that background got a little risque in some of the stories they would tell. It was just something a lot of people followed. So the British came in and kicked out what they colonized India, this type of dance. And after India went back its independence in 1948, they started reviving this dance and brought it back to India. And it's actually even bigger role today. Indians who live here in America, a lot do that Bharatanatyam dancing, stay in touch with their culture.
Thank you.
So when did you do the dance then?
I started it in college. I did it from 2014 to 2019.
Oh, so 5 years.
Okay.
What would you say it has like many similarities to like German folk dancing, or is it just so
I would
different?
say it's more similar to a ballet style.
Okay.
You're telling a story.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, telling a story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You mentioned something about like seeing how like the uniform came to be and like how different regions would have different colors and we don't mix. You don't wear our color. We don't wear your color. I don't know anything about like the way that different regions treated each other back then. But do you feel like that was a source of like? Do you feel like having different colors was a source of like pride? And they would meet together like you do for Gaufest still, and they would come together and be like, "Wow, look at my color! Wow, look at your color!" Or was it like our color we have to be the best color? Like, what was even the thought behind that? Why didn't everybody just have the same color?
Yes, so I think it's did everybody hear that?
Yeah.
Pretty much? No, okay. So the question is, I made the comment about people wearing, this town wore this color, and this town had their costume, and this town had their costume, and they weren't sharing it with anybody else. I think that society in general was very much, you have to think back, when my mother tells me how society was in the 40s and 50s, you Catholics didn't talk to the Protestants, and the Jews didn't talk to the Catholics, and the Italian, well, that's the Italian street. We don't go over there. That's the Italian street, and that's the, and our Italian school, we have red uniforms, and this school has blue uniforms. Well, you think Europe 100 years ago, we don't have that perception anymore. It's European Union. They're all the same currency. They go by the same driving rules. They wear the same police uniform colors, and that's not how it was. If you crossed over the border, make sure you didn't wear the wrong color, because then they threw rocks at you. And it was the same way from town to town, yeah. So I think you're right. In the beginning, I don't think they had this color thing. I think the color thing came to be when those styles became outdated, but they created these organizations. There were band organizations, marching band organizations, and dance organizations, and singing organizations, and soccer organizations, sport, and that sport, and the other, and they had their color set that they wore, and from a day-to-day living, they didn't have it, but once they had their club and their town, it's no different than the high schools. When you get to the game, you don't have to know who's playing the game. You know by their colors that who's playing the game, right? Even when they turn the TV on. If the Eagles are playing this one and the Dallas is playing this, you don't have to see. I think it was that. So we are all hyped up in this whole thing where we have to wear, and I'm not picking on anything, it's just a point of interest. We have to wear green vests, and we have to have black pants, or we have to have brown pants, or we have to have this shoe, or we have to have that shoe. You look at that old picture, the first picture I showed, that stuff didn't happen until the organizations came to be. And the wealthy people, they had a dress in every color. The poor people, they had a work dress and a Sunday dress. That was it. Maybe they had 2 work dresses, 1 Sunday dress. But the wealthy people, they had a dress in every color. So this thing that everybody wore just one color, that's a trickle down that is, I think, a figment of our imagination. I think it is since the organizing of Schublotler or whatever kind of, Turnverein, whoever it is, Schießverein, all these things. I think those colors all came to be. In fact, when you watch those parades in Germany now, across the board, all the brass bands all have the same color socks, and all the Schublotters all have the same color vests, but I don't think 150 years ago that was the case. Does that all make sense? Yes.
So you said that the one Eastern European dance was a UNESCO cultural heritage?
Yes.
You know, whenever this UNESCO thing started with the site, the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and I didn't know that there were dances that were, you go look up a thing, you know, I have my knowledge in my head, but then you go online, I don't have to go to the library anymore, I just go online and type 3 words in, and you know how to do it. And, I don't know, that's a great question. My question all the time is, why does it not say the Irish jig, the something something, and the shubballer?
Right.
Makes me crazy. Anything else? Yes.
I was gonna ask, seems like how German dancing came here in America. 'Cause I know like German clubs started out like singing groups, and then you get a chance like after World War II.
So there are, my father said, I can only tell you what my father said. My father said, we would say, this is a little off the subject, but I'll get back to the point. He was going to South America or something, and we said, oh, well, what do the Germans in South America do? He said, the same thing we do. Oh, he's going to Milwaukee for a soccer thing. He went to the German Fest. What do they do there? The same thing we do. So why? He said, that's what we do.
Tradition.
They brought it with them.
Yeah,
They brought
that's what we do. We drink beer, we sing songs, we dance, we eat borscht. That's basically it, those 4. And he would say, well, how do they find each other? They find each other.
Well, they had to be sponsored way back when.
They had to be
You
sponsored.
them over and you lived in the same neighborhoods.
And remember, the neighborhoods were
Yes, the
segregated.
neighborhoods
They were segregated. And you leave your home, now the world is flat. You know, we all use the same internet, we all use the same Amazon company, we all have Walmart. You go to Hungary, there's Walmart, you know? It wasn't like that. So you would find somebody, you know? And people would, I mean, they weren't that obnoxious that they didn't say, oh, you're a German fella. There's a German fella 2 streets over. And you would go, you know? And then that's how things got started. There were many, many, many singing varieties. Many, many, many. Our German Hungarian club was originally Banader Männerchor, you know, and people came to their family. So the big wave of people that came from, let's say, 1890 to 1910, in those years, maybe even 1885 to 1915, till the World War I started. That was a big wave. The oldest son came, then the next son came, then the guy from down the street came. They all came to each other, you know. Then they made, oh, we're going to make a fry. There were hundreds of them, hundreds.
In Buffalo, they were all living in the same neighborhood, but our group essentially started in a bar, because that's where all the men went to after work. And so that's where they all got together and they started from there, and then their families joined them. But it was what they always did in Germany. After work, they'd go to the bar. Do the same thing in the States. So it's
Correct. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, started and then when did the like formal dance meetup, like Gaufest and stuff like that?
Oh, you have to go to.
Come to the library and archive. Come talk to me.
So there were early 70s.
Well, the first Gaufest was in 1967.
Right. So okay, 60s. So early to mid 60s, there were all these shoe color organizations specifically. They're referred to, I think, in the bylaws as Gebirgstrachtenverein. So Gebirgs is the mountains, Trachten is the bar, club. So they did folk dancing, they did singing, they did different things, mostly of the shoe color. And like I just said, you know, this guy's got a cousin there, this guy's got a cousin there. So everybody knew, you know, the people in Philadelphia, they knew there was a club in Delaware, and Delaware knew there was one in Reading, and Reading knew there was one in Oley, and Oley knew there was one here, you know. So 20 clubs, whatever it was, maybe 20, maybe 25, they got together for a meeting, I believe, And everybody sent 1 or 2 delegates, and they had a meeting. You know, there was no organization yet. They decided to form for Bond, and then they decided to have a Gaufest. So Gal means region, right? So it's a regional fest. Our region happens to be really big. In Germany, the Gals are counties. So we had in Pennsylvania, Montgomery County, Bucks County, Philadelphia County, blah, blah, blah. Everybody has their thing.
Germany's
Here.
smaller than the United States.
It is,
It's
yeah.
dominating.
It's, yeah. So they got like together and they chartered or incorporated whatever they did. Our club was not involved at that time. But that's how they came to be, and then, you know, oh, this one wants to join, this one wants to join, and they made their rules and bylaws, and here we are. Talking about the history of Falklands.
Yeah.
Somebody else had their hand.
Oh, that was me. I guess I always think it's so interesting because my group obviously is very young, kind of like going into this. What do you think is like the biggest threat of like the disappearance of like the German heritage culture, like moving forward? I know it's a loaded
It's the
one.
same threat to every other cultural organization. We have a big problem with people not wanting to give their time to volunteer organizations. We have so many distractions. If you,
So I wanted to, you made a comment about how small Germany is compared to the US, we're, you know, how many, we're at War One Gaufest over this whole thing. Texas is twice the size of Germany. Just saying, there's a relative thing. When people come over from Germany, I had friends visit me when I was still in Virginia, and they said, well, can we just, they came for a week, so can we just go down to Miami? I'm going, well, we can, it's 1,600 miles, but we get on the road now.
right.
So anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting. Montana is the state that's closest in the size of Germany.
Of Germany.
Just
Okay.
fun facts to know
No,
itself.
good,
Ah.
thank you.
And then what we do as shoe plotters is even confined to even a smaller region
Yes.
of Germany.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
and that's,
Yeah.
so you're going even smaller in geographic scope of footprint that we actually do, or what's done that we do here.
So that's a good one to know, the size of Bayern as opposed to what
Well,
state
even,
the
but
size
even
of
just
Bayern.
the
And
size
then
of
region.
Alpine Bayern, where the shoe plottling is predominant. Because you go to northern Bavaria, they don't do it up in Nuremberg.
No, and if those people come here, they honestly just think we're weird.
Yeah.
You know, they just think we're weird. Our club hosted a dinner one time for the chief of the lodge of Germany. And the gentlemen that were in the lodge that were from our club, they're proud of our shoe public group, and they wanted our shoe public group to dance. And my husband at the time and they wanted us to come to the dinner dressed in our shoe butler clothes. Well, the gentleman from Germany who was this high level, him and his wife laughed at us out loud. They laughed, you know? And like, as Americans, we accept everyone. We don't get it.
Yeah.
We don't get it. That we, especially in our time that we're living in now, well, we've got problems, but I'm going to say for all of us, we don't get it. We're open to other cultures, and we accept everybody.
Yeah.
Look, we have all kinds of people here this year, every year. I mean, we're from everywhere. You know, it's not like in Indiana like it is in Pennsylvania or in Texas or we're different, live in very different places, but we accept everybody. But yeah, so in Germany, they still laugh at them in Bavaria.
Because even within Germany, there's like not everyone does like the shoe plotter traditional dances,
No.
right? I remember at my work, a group of 20 German foreign exchange students came in, and I noticed they were speaking German. I was like, oh, I do German folk dancing. And, you know, they did seem to be very like weirded out by me talking about the shoe plotter and stuff like that. And afterwards, I was like, well, why was that? And I asked my girlfriend, who is also in this group, like, oh, what was up with that? And she's like, well, in Germany, these people think these people are weird. We think they're stuck up. You know, it's so interesting to think about.
The other Americans think we're weird too.
They still watch, and they pay for the beer.
Joe.
Just one other thing, though. You know, we have some local organizations that are in different cities, and there's a couple of German organizations. I think one of the problems we have sometimes is we don't like to work together sometimes.
Yeah.
The German organizations versus some of the other cultures, that's, you know, why they're maybe a little bit bigger, they have bigger festivals sometimes. We're afraid to work together with each other. Even if you got 4 or 5 clubs in a region, sometimes we don't want to work together. We need to work on that because that'll keep us thriving.
That goes back to our great
Oh,
grandparents.
I know it does, but we need to get rid of that if we're gonna move forward.
Okay, we're gonna shut you off. We have to redress this script for Shavkov.
Thank you.